Switching gears a little bit here, I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that interest rates are on the rise right now. A 10-year note hit a multi-year high of about 3.1%. It backed down a little bit. But the reason why I want to mention this in the context of my next guest, Senator Rand Paul, with whom I wanted to chat yesterday about his balanced budget plan, is this makes the cost of carrying debt a lot more prohibitive. As interest rates go up, it's sort of like your Visa or MasterCard. The finance fees go up as well. This is something the senator is trying to stop right now with this balanced budget measure, which, of course, I think they're taking up, as I said, tomorrow. Senator, good to have you back.
Thank you. There are estimates that interest will become the largest item in our budget at the rate our debt is growing. Over $21 trillion. Interest is a little over $200 billion. But there are estimates that it'll be the number one item in our budget over the next several years if we don't do something to stop this runaway spending.
Now, your plan is to look, deficits are what's added to the debt. In other words, every time we spend more than we're taking in, that adds to the deficit. In a given year, the deficits pile up under the debt to the point we have this $21 trillion monster we're staring at. So you can well imagine the finance cost of carrying that. Now, you have a solution. Explain in a nutshell what your budget plan would be.
I have a conservative budget. We call it the penny plan budget. And what it would do is cut 1 penny out of every dollar we spend in the federal government over about a 5-year period. And the budget actually balances. It's pretty amazing. If you have a budget, which we do, of about $3.2 trillion, 1% is about $32 billion. You cut that each year for 5 years in a row. You enforce the budget caps that we were living under until a couple of months ago, and you actually balance within 5 years. And if we could get all the Republicans to vote for it, we could then use the process of reconciliation, which allows by a majority vote, we could do something like expand health savings account, which I've been a big advocate of.
So how can that, I'm just trying to do the math in my head, always dangerous, Senator, how can that bring you into balance in 5 years just doing this penny thing or 1/100th of the expenses?
Right. Because you have to understand that government grows at about 6% a year. So we're going to add, $15 trillion in new debt over the next 10 years. So what we do is we start at a baseline of 0. Instead of acknowledging that, government's going to grow at 6% a year, we say, well, what if it stayed the same and we cut $30 billion a year and then $30 billion a year and then $30 billion a year? If you do the math on it and you reinstitute the budget caps, which saves about $100 billion, you actually do balance in about 5 years. But the bottom line for me is every Republican in Congress says they're for the balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. It would balance the budget in 5 years. And yet very few of these Republicans will actually vote for my budget because there's kind of a disconnect. They want to symbolically be for a balanced budget, but they don't want to actually do the painful vote of actually doing the cutting of spending that it would take.
Yeah, but curbs or, freezes, they never seem to work, and even with Graham Rudman, remember when they came up with that and then set spending targets?
Well, you know why they don't work.
That's
Neil.
why I'm saying how sure are you that this would work?
Because they don't work because Congress doesn't adhere to their own rules. So we had budget caps and they were working. The budget caps work. It's that Congress gets greedy on both sides.
So
both
what's to
Republicans
stop
and
them from
Democrats.
doing the same with your plan? It's a very good plan, by the way.
Nothing's to stop them from reneging on the plan.
Right.
We actually want to get them to actually vote for the plan to begin with. See, the problem's going to be in the beginning. When we have this vote tomorrow, half the Republicans in the Senate will show their true stripes and they won't vote to balance the budget. Even though they say they're for it, when they're home at the local Rotary, they say they're for it. So really, you can't give people courage, you can't give people intestinal fortitude, but that means we have to readdress who are the people who represent us. And if Republicans come begging for your vote, they come begging for your contribution, and they say they're going to balance a budget, and they don't, there needs to be repercussions. People need to be aware of who up here actually is a conservative and who up here actually is just playing a game.
Well, maybe that's the one thing that makes Republicans so vulnerable this election year, that despite the tax cuts, despite some of the things that look good for the economy or potentially could, as fiscal stewards, the rap against Republicans is you ain't what you say.
Well, I got elected in 2010 because I complained about President Obama's spending and his big deficits that he was having, $1 trillion annual deficits. Guess what? Republicans are doing the same, but I'm still complaining and I'm still voting now against the Republican spending and the Republican deficits. And I think what people want is a consistent voice who's not just opposed to deficits when they're Democrat, but opposed to deficits because they're bad for the country.
Watch closely. It's a novel idea, not a crazy one, but then again, it is Congress. All right, Senator, thank you very, very
Thanks,
much.
Dan.
In the meantime,